Hey everybody, it's Chris. I've got another interview for you today with Dr. Ruby Lathon. She's an engineer turned holistic nutritionist after healing herself of thyroid cancer. And guess what she did to help herself heal? She radically changed her diet and lifestyle and adopted a plant-based diet. She was featured in the documentary What the Health, which is a favorite of mine. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. And she's in a new documentary coming up called They're Trying to Kill Us, which we'll talk about. Who is they? Dr. Lathon served as the nutrition policy manager at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, where she developed and led a national grassroots campaign to advocate legislation for a more healthful plant-based meal options in the National School Lunch Program. That's a good thing. And she's the host of The Veggie Chest, the plant-based cooking show aired on Washington's DC TV. So, Dr. Ruby Lathon, good to see you. You look great. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, glad to be here. And I just appreciate the work you're doing and glad to chat with you today.
Well, I'm excited to share your story because I have a big audience of people who, some of them have cancer and they're trying to heal, and others are very serious about prevention and they want to prevent cancer and heart disease and diabetes. They want to prevent these leading killers, leading causes of death in most Western countries. And so I'd love for you to tell your story. How did you get into nutrition? Did the thyroid cancer diagnosis come first? Or?
Yeah, the cancer diagnosis came first. I mean, I thought I was eating pretty healthy, before the diagnosis. I was mostly vegetarian. But I wasn't a big label reader at all. I just I wasn't eating that much meat, but I was eating a ton of dairy and eggs and things like that to kind of replace the meat. It was like the default is cheese and everything. So when I was diagnosed, that was back in 2007. I was totally shocked by it. And so I just decided I wanted to treat it naturally. And then I didn't want to take out a working organ in my body and have to be on medication forever. And so I said, let me research. And I just started from ground zero. I didn't have any agenda, obviously, except healing myself. And the research was just there. It was just like a plant-based diet. I read stories. I probably read your story because you're before 2007, right? I don't know.
No, I didn't go public until 2010.
Okay,
my
so I read
was 03.
Tons of stories though about people healing themselves, and then I read the research, the journals, and so I said, okay, this makes sense. I went to a lifestyle treatment center and switched my diet overnight. Got rid of all the processed food, all the meat, dairy products, and just started healing. And then I just developed my own nutrition plan based on the research that I did in terms of what I thought would help my body heal in terms of empowering the immune system, reducing inflammation, all those kind of things. And so I just put the plan together and I was monitoring the thyroid every few months with ultrasound to see if things are shrinking or growing or whatever. And then I started meditating and visualizing my health. And a year later, long story short, the cancer was gone. We did a second biopsy and biopsied all the little nodules on my thyroid. There was nothing there. And the doctor changed my diagnosis from a cancer patient. And I've been in the clear since then. And I knew that this was not a dietary thing that you could just do to heal cancer and then go back. It's like common sense for me was whatever you're doing to get there, you're going to have to continue it. So maybe not in the intensity that I was, but at least the general tenets of the diet. So I started cooking plant-based food and people wanted to know how I did it. And then I switched my career because I wasn't really excited about the engineering anymore. And I wanted to help people find their path. And maybe not have to do as much digging and research as I did to get here. And so that's the story.
So how did you discover the cancer? Were you feeling bad? Were you feeling different? Did you have a lump?
I was not feeling bad. My thyroid was enlarged, and I had a really good doctor who had noticed it a few years before and said that my thyroid felt large. So we did not a biopsy, we did an ultrasound then. And then when I went back, it was like, 2 or 3 years later, she was like, it feels like it's grown. I was like, I don't know how you would know that, but but she said that. And so we did a second ultrasound, and there were new nodules that looked like there was blood flow and things happening. And so then we did the biopsy, and that's when it showed that there was cancer.
And what was the first piece of information you found that, well, actually, before I ask you that, what prompted you to want to heal it naturally? Because most patients, right? Most patients, they get a diagnosis and the doctor says, this is the next step, right? Maybe it's surgery, maybe it's chemo, maybe it's radiation, right? And most patients just say, okay, and they just do it. Like, what was different about you? Maybe something about, the way you grew up, or experiences you've had in your life, or just the way you think. What was different about you that made you start looking elsewhere?
Yeah, I think two things. The first was when I got the diagnosis on the phone, and I asked the doctor, I just had an aversion to medication, just naturally not wanting to take pharmaceutical things and be dependent on anything. So when he said, you have to take out thyroid, then you'll be on medication forever, I had a very visceral, like, I don't want that. That was number one. I was like, I don't want to be dependent upon medication for the rest of my life.
Were there people in your life that you had seen?
What was that?
Were there people in your life that you had seen?
Yeah, there were people, I had seen my grandmother be on these pharmaceuticals and not get well. It just seemed like like a trap, and I was like, it just doesn't feel right. So, and I asked him, well, what are the alternatives to that? And he said, there are none. And so that didn't there was like a gut instinct that said, that's not true. It was just like automatic. And I said, well, I immediately said, well, I want to look at other options. And he was like, well, you can do whatever you want. We can just schedule this in 3 months. You can come back then, try whatever you want, just come back in 3 months. So it was just a natural reaction that I didn't want to do that. And then I think in my church community, I'd heard about other people who'd said, they heal themselves naturally. And there's this woman, particularly who was like 70 years old, and said she had breast cancer 20 years ago. And here she is looking fantastic. So I'm like, if she can do it, I just heard other people, just in passing. And I was like, well, it can be done because I've heard about it. So that was why, for me, just the aversion to medication and just knowing that other people have done this before.
Our stories are so similar. Oncologist said the same thing to me when I asked him if there were any alternatives. He said, no, there are none. And he wasn't as nice as your doctor, because he told me if I didn't do chemotherapy, I was insane after surgery. Yeah. And so it was very, very threatening,
yeah. Well,
didn't go well. And I never went back to him. I found another doctor that supported me. So.
Exactly. Because when I did go back in 3 months to see what it looked like, and nothing had changed yet, and I said I was just going to continue doing what I'm doing, then the tone changed and it became very like bullying and threatening, and you're being irresponsible. He even wrote a letter to my primary physician saying, I'm not following the protocol and you need to talk to her about that. Yeah. So I actually then changed endocrinologist, because every time I went to see this initial doctor, he was so negative, I would feel so bad leaving. I was like, this is not good for my process. So I found another endocrinologist who I explained, this is what I'm going to do. Can you do it without your commentary and monitor me? And he agreed, reluctantly, but he agreed.
This is such an important lesson for anybody watching. If your doctor doesn't support you and is bullying you and talking down to you and treating you like you're stupid and being negative and critical and those kind of things, find another doctor. You are not
Absolutely.
locked in.
Exactly. I was like, your doctor works for you. I don't work. It's not the other way around. It's like, I don't have to put up with this, So I say I fired my doctor, found one who's going to do what I want to do, because ultimately nobody cares more about me than me. Right. So if if you think I'm being irresponsible, that's on me. I take that responsibility, which I was not. I had a concrete plan moving forward.
There's something that I say a lot, which is, it's very similar to what you just said, which is no one is going to take better care of you than you if you decide to. And, and forgive me if I mixed your story up, but weren't you already seeing some positive results at 3 months when you went back? Was there any, or was it just no change?
It was no change. Yeah, there was no, I felt great.
Yeah.
Better than I've ever felt, but there was no change there. And so I think a part of it was, just I expected change in 3 months, but I think there was more that I needed to do in terms of the mental work that came along with the lifestyle change. And I was so focused on also at the same time why I got this. And so I was researching, what could have caused it and that kind of thing. And I finally, kind of after that 3 month mark, I went to this center that measures radiation in your body, because the thyroid's very sensitive to radiation. And I'm like, what could it have been? And we found some substances, californium, that's not naturally occurring everywhere, that I had in my system. And I worked for a national security lab where that was made and was nearby. And so to me, I figured I found my answer as to why I had it, so I could release that and then just kind of focus on the healing. And that, to me, that's the mental part of it, because I really believe in holistic nutrition. So if your mind is all over the place and if you're fearful, which I was in the beginning, then that's a different vibration than healing. And so after about the 6 months mark is when I kind of made a transition away from being afraid and trying to figure out why, and just focusing on letting the process work.
Well, that's awesome. I think, first of all, kudos to you for, standing your ground, because I'm sure it must have been a little bit discouraging to go after 3 months and see that there was no progress, which, by the way, no progress is actually good news. I often have to remind patients of this, right? If it doesn't grow, right? If it doesn't grow, it can't spread and kill you, right?
Right, exactly.
So,
that was like, even after the second time when there was still no change, it's like, it's not growing, it's not on my lymph nodes, let's keep going. So I'm not in any more danger than when I was diagnosed.
Makes me wonder if your engineering background had prepared you to sort of think logically and rationally about your situation without, emotion and fear clouding your judgment. Although I'm sure, the fear was there, but you think that was part of it too, that you were just kind of able to be a little bit more analytical?
It was. I definitely was very analytical. I was analytical in the approach to the research, because I was so used to doing research and really getting to the root cause of things. So that really gave me the confidence that my research made sense, because, I've done dissertations, so I know how to create a hypothesis and support it. So that definitely gave me the confidence in what I was doing. And I wasn't intimidated by the doctors, because I'm like, I have a brain, it works very well. Just give me the information, So I said, I became my doctor. And so I definitely feel like the engineering background helped me just plot it out, because I was definitely methodical in it, in terms of when I started with the supplements and, how long I was going to do what and that kind of thing. So I was like my own research project, basically.
I love it. And as a PhD, obviously you're highly educated. So you're probably, you were in a unique position and empowered in a lot of ways that maybe some patients aren't. But I think just on the outset of your diagnosis, you had sort of an aversion to pharmaceuticals and the medical industry. You had your instincts and intuition telling you there has to be other options besides this one that I'm going to get.
Right.
You had heard stories of other people that had healed and survived long term and had done some holistic kind of stuff. I'm sure you weren't sure what, but you wanted to find out. Like all those things I think are so wonderful. I mean, just key parts of your story that just, we have to be very, we have to pay attention to these common threads in survivor stories because, I had a lot of the exact same, except for the high level of education. Okay. I'm a 6-year undergrad.
And that's not even
right?
necessary. Yeah, I feel like it definitely helped me, but it's not a necessity.
Right. But and the point is that even though you had already sort of prepared yourself, not knowing to think this way, anyone can take a step back and think logically and analytically about their situation and just take a breath, take a moment, take days or even weeks or months to say, okay, let me start to sort my life out. Let me investigate the causes of my disease.
Exactly.
Let me understand this disease and read and research. Do you remember the first piece of information, whether it was a study or a book, that you found that was like a major light bulb where you were like, okay, I'm onto something?
There were a couple of different things. I can't remember exactly, but I just remember just reading some of the articles on the rates of cancer and reversal and things like that online that really helped me. And then there were a couple of books that helped me in terms of just releasing the fear of it all. It was, and I talk about this book all the time and now it's blanking, but it was Love, Medicine, and Miracles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bernie
I got it
Siegel.
right here. Bernie Siegel.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was a shift for me. And Spontaneous Healing was a big shift by Andrew Weil, and really kind of getting to the core of sometimes how illness manifests. So that, for me, those were the emotional pieces. The food and the diet was really just the hardcore kind of evidence of what makes sense and how cancer forms and what feeds it and estrogens and all this kind of thing. It was like, that just makes sense because it's there when you just read it.
Was there a plant-based diet, physician or influencer at that time that, impacted you?
There wasn't any specific one at the time. It was really just, so I can't remember, but I know it wasn't like a specific one. It was just several that I just read. And so to me, being the logical person I was, it didn't take that much to convince me that made sense. I think Agatha Thrash was one that I first, because she was affiliated with the church I was attending at the time. And so that, it was something that just made sense to me. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to give up all the, and the funny thing is, I always tell people, I knew so little about nutrition when I started this, that the night before I was going to this treatment center I had researched, and they were plant-based, and you do all the natural and holistic things. I was pigging out on Doritos and Oreos because I knew we were going to have no good food the next day. I was like, that makes no sense, right? But after that, I realized how silly that was. But I'm just saying, to go from that starting point about how the healing process works, because I went there about 3 weeks after the diagnosis. Like, I just have to go and just get immersed. And I think going there helped me. I learned so much, right, in like 3 weeks.
And people are they're gonna ask, what's the name of the place?
It's Uchee Pines in Alabama.
Okay.
So UCHEE. And and so they started with diet and juicing and all kinds of, hyperbaric chamber and all kinds of stuff that I did for 3 weeks and really cleansed my system. And learned so much about it. And so that's why, just stopped using the microwave and all kinds of stuff like that, and really learned how to read labels. So in addition to not eating animal products, but let's not eat all the preservatives and the food coloring and all that other stuff too.
Were you mostly raw in the beginning, or just?
In the beginning, it was a lot raw. I had at least 1 or 2 raw meals a day, but I wasn't 100% because I did eat like lots of brown rice and, I think Ezekiel bread. I ate a lot of garlic, like tons of garlic every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
those
I
are an
had to find
anti-cancer vegetable.
a lot of different ways to get garlic in. So I do the pestos with like almonds and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I wasn't eating anything processed. It was mostly just whole grains and a lot of raw foods and
So,
teas and things like that.
so 1 year later, you have the scan and no cancer. You're cancer free, and I mean it's awesome. I mean the body
Yeah,
can
I
heal.
was ecstatic. I was fully ecstatic because I went into it and I said, after like the 3 months and I didn't get the results I expected, I said I'm going to give myself a year because this doesn't happen overnight. So maybe it's not going to just go away overnight, so that I could take away the stress of, oh, it's got to be gone now. It's got to be gone. Just let the process happen and really trust the process. And then I said, after a year, if it's still there, I'll reevaluate what I'm going to do. So I don't have this, thing looming over my head every time I go for a check, that it's okay if it's there. I'm trusting the process. And the first clue that things were working was when my thyroid shrunk down to its normal size. And the thing is, my endocrinologist didn't even tell me that. It's because I looked at the report that I asked for, because they would always say, who am I sending this? I'm like, I'm essentially my doctor. So give me the information. And when I was looking at it, the current, from what I had to, months before. So I'm talking to the doctor about this. I was like, is this true? Because it's gone from like 7.3 centimeters to 4.2. I mean, that's a huge difference, not the tumor, but the thyroid. And he was like, oh, well, yeah, that's true. I've never seen that really happen before. And if I hadn't been reading my own charts, I wouldn't have noticed the progress that I was making. And that was because I was doing things that would reduce inflammation. Obviously, a plant-based diet itself reduces inflammation, but also supplements and enzymes that help, systemic enzymes that help reduce inflammation.
And he said, congratulations on being so lucky.
No, he did not. He was like, oh, well. And the other thing is, when I got the all clear, he still suggested surgery. I'm so
glad you brought this up, because these two experiences, one, the 3-month visit and the 12-month, this is so common. I can't tell. I mean, I've lost count of how many times someone in our community who has radically changed their life, their hardcore plant-based diet, juicing, raw foods, supplements, exercise, stress reduction, right? They are they are taking massive action to change their life. And they have a follow-up appointment, and the story is either like yours, where there's no change, or there's actually change. It's better, right? It's reduced, or it's gone. And the doctors still try to talk them into treatment. It's like, this is so common. Even when, it's like you're healing, it's working. And what really is, just gives me so much, can't think of the right word, but it's painful to me, because I often also hear of patients getting talked into treatment.
Right.
When they're they're changing their life, they're getting results, tumor shrinking, and then somehow they get talked into treatment. And I'm like,
Right. And the doctors are so convincing, and their scare tactics are so ridiculous that, if you don't have that strong resolve or support system or someone else who you trust to bounce this off of, it's easy to say, okay, because it's like, and so I don't understand, but the scare tactics, because I work with people all the time now, and the same thing happens over and over again, that they get really pushed into it and are made to be so fearful that they think, this is the only option. Because a responsible doctor would have been, if he was concerned, he would say, okay, well, maybe we should just keep monitoring this now every couple of months or 6 months or so to make sure it doesn't come back, but not let me take out your thyroid that no longer has any issues whatsoever and put you on a medication that has been shown to cause things like breast cancer. Let me put you on that medication just because it may come back. I'm like, how irresponsible is that?
It really is.
It's just maddening, really.
It is maddening. It's insane. And, there's some really awesome doctors out there that are just terrific people. And on the flip side, there's some really bad ones. There's some really
Absolutely.
terrible, lousy physicians out there. And you don't know, it's hard to tell in the beginning of a relationship, right? Like what kind of person is taking care of you.
It is hard to tell. And that's where you have to trust your gut. If you have that pause where this feels like something's wrong, because the first doctor that I felt like he was just putting me into a system, because he didn't ask me, what do you want to do? Anything about that. He just said, we'll do this. I'll schedule this. You'll come in for this. I'm like, wait a minute. I just got the diagnosis. You haven't even asked me anything. You're just about to take over my life like that and just put me into this system. I was like, the imagery was just like this cog in this wheel of the cancer train. And I'm just another number that's going to spit out money for you. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. It was just the feeling that I got from that was so like, I'm about to just be put into a system. And that was the aversion that came up and just said, no, we're not doing that.
Same feeling I had. And if anybody watching this is having that feeling, you're not crazy, okay? Because It is a system, and unfortunately, even the good doctors are trapped in a system that pays them very well, but it doesn't matter what the results are. And they're overloaded and overworked, and they have to see 40 patients a day. And they're not trained on nutrition. They're not trained on prevention. They're not trained on healing, right? They're just trained to prescribe drugs or perform procedures. So I have empathy and sympathy for doctors, because it's a really brutal profession. It's just been corrupted.
It has been. And I'm not anti-doctor at all, because we need diagnoses and we need to know what's going on with our body. And, I've got plenty of friends who are doctors, and they talk to me about how they feel crunched for time and only having 15 to 20 minutes to speak to a patient, and how it's overwhelming for them. So we need to reform this entire system, because partly the doctors are just cogs in the system too. They're just the ones who are doing the work. And so if I hadn't had a doctor initially who took the time, because I would always complain how I had to wait at least an hour, maybe even more, to see my primary care. That's because she didn't adhere to the 15 to 20 minute time that she was given. She would just go over every day and you would just wait. But she was a better doctor because of it.
Yeah. I'm definitely not anti-doctor either. And most of what I've learned from doctors, right? The good and the bad. Most of the horrific information I've learned about the cancer industry has come from my own experience, other patients, and doctors who are basically whistleblowers saying this whole system is corrupt, it's broken, we're not saving lives. And
they'll say they know nothing much about nutrition and haven't had the training. So I have doctors who consult with me on nutrition because they understand that I know more about it at this point than they did, because they don't have any training in it or very little.
I've also had the same. It's certainly a good feeling. So you heal up, things are going well, and at what point did you decide this is really your passion?
Yeah. So I had taken time off for this, and so I'm thinking about going back to work full time and what I'm going to do. And I was working in defense. And it really goes against my nature, to work in defense, honestly. But I was seeing dollar signs because I was like, I want to make a lot of money. I grew up in a modest environment. I just wanted to maximize as much money as I could.
Yeah.
And so
let me interrupt you. Do you think quitting your job helped?
Definitely.
Was it really stressful? And also there was some toxic element there, right? Possibly too.
Yeah, in just terms of exposure, but also because I wasn't happy and felt stressed over it. Yeah, it definitely, because when I did get the diagnosis, I was already planning an exit. I just wasn't sure how. I was like, I have to find out how I'm going to get out of this. And I felt a lot of pressure to stay in engineering because my PhD is in engineering, my master's, and then computer science and all of this. It's like, I've been trained to do this. You took out 10 years of your life to go to school. You're supposed to do this. And now you're in it and you don't like it. You don't get to just throw it away, right? But I really wanted out. And so I was like trying to figure that out. And when I got the cancer, I was like, I guess this is my out because no one's really questioning me now. They're like, whatever you need, people kind of back off. And I just took that as an opportunity to change everything. So when I was trying to figure out how to go back to work, I just decided I'm switching careers and that I didn't find joy in the engineering, even working for myself in engineering with a small group. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And that's when I found PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And I said, I had gone to this headhunter who helps you figure out serious life career changes. And he told me, he was like, well, just put in, what do you want to do? I was like, I really don't know what I want to do. I just don't want to be doing that. He's like, put in what you want to do, leading, directing, and that kind of thing in the search engine of jobs and see what pops up. And I was like, I'm looking for a job I would do for free, if I didn't need the money. And that's when I saw Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, needed nutrition policy manager. And I was like, I'm reading all the qualifications needed. I was like, I checked off all those boxes. I've literally been studying for a year plant-based diets because it was actually 14 months from the start to the diagnosis. I've been studying for a literal year. I know more about cancer and all this than most people. So I went out and I said, I'm just going to go for it. And they loved me. I loved them. And that's when I made the career shift.
And what year was that? Oh, so that was
2010. Yeah. 9-10. Started like December 2009. Yeah. So, and I was living in Albuquerque. I moved to DC and just like, I'm just starting over.
Now, are you still working with them?
I'm a board member now. I'm no longer employed by them, but yeah, I was there for about 2 years as an employee, and it was a great experience. I mean, I learned even more, obviously, working there. I worked directly with Neil Barnard, and so read all the books, read all the stuff. I'm like, okay, I got like another crash course, even a deeper dive than before when I started working there and working with a nutritionist there as well. So
I've interviewed Dr. Barnard, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
We have spoke on the plant-based cruise 2 years ago.
Yes.
Remember cruises?
I know. I was like, I love cruises. I love cruises so much. I've done cooking demos and things on cruises. I was like, I can't wait to get back. But I guess that's on hold for a minute.
Yeah, that's on hold. So I'd love to ask you about the supplements that you took, the things that you learned and discovered, and what you felt you needed to supplement with in addition to the plant-based diet to help yourself heal.
Yeah, so I went through tons of supplements, and then I kind of settled on a few different ones. So one was a mushroom extract of like shiitake mushroom, brown mushrooms. That was one that I took pretty consistently. I took IP6, which is an immune system booster. That was one I took quite a bit. I took the systemic enzyme called Vitalzyme, which helps reduce inflammation and things in the body. So I took that pretty consistently. I still take that some now. I took flaxseed oil pretty regularly as well, trying to get the high sulfur foods in. I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a protocol of like, it was cottage cheese, flax, and something else, but replacing the cottage cheese to try to get the high sulfur thing. So that was one of the kind of supplements that I took in addition to like at least 8 cloves of garlic a day. I did wheatgrass every day with carrot juice right after because of the taste. So wheatgrass, carrot juice, ginger.
I love it. Well, that you're talking about the Ludwig, or some people call it Budwig protocol.
Yes, that exactly.
Yeah. And did you make a concoction? Like, that's the cottage cheese and flax, blended together. Did you make a concoction that was similar, or did you just take them like, lots
I
of
did.
fruit?
So yeah, I did flax seeds, hemp seeds, with like soy almond milk. And because I think when I was at UG Pines, they were trying to simulate that as well, but plant-based.
Got it.
So, yeah. And so that was what I kind of put together. So yeah, I did that pretty much every day. And so definitely that was part of it. Yeah.
Any other supplements?
Part of my supplements. And there was some algae water I was taking. That was one. There are a lot of different things, but I have to look at my list. But yeah, those were the main ones that I took. And I felt like the juicing, the wheatgrass, for me, the wheatgrass made the most sense if I'm in it, because, juicing can be a lot. So you only need like 2 ounces of wheatgrass a day. So you just get the big pallet and just make your 2 ounces, plus the carrot juice was pretty simple, and ginger. And that was my regimen with the juicing, because I just couldn't manage pounds and pounds of juicing every day, along with all of the other protocols, Essiac tea and green tea, and several things, those kind of things that I was doing pretty regularly.
Well, we did a lot of the same things, which I love. And I took a ton of supplements. And, the difference, though, between your approach and mine was, I was in, basically January 2004 when I started, and I had no scientific background at all. And I didn't read any studies or any literature, but I had, a bunch of books, right? I just went from book to book to book, and I was just learning from doctors and survivors who'd written books. And so I was just taking anything and everything I could, just, with the attitude that, hey, if it isn't toxic, right, maybe it'll help. If it doesn't help me, I'm okay with that. As long as there's no risk of harm, like, I'll take it, so.
Yeah, I was like that in the beginning, and then I just got overwhelmed because I'm like, I'm taking too much stuff. And I was like, I have to put it in these categories that make sense. I was also working with a holistic naturopathic doctor who I was like her first client. She was just graduating, and she kind of helped walk me through it and kind of take it down a bit, because I was just taking everything. And then I was like, I wanted to really research and say what worked, but then I was like, I just want to heal. So I realized taking all these things together, I'm not going to know what exactly worked or didn't work, but it doesn't matter, because I'm just trying to get better. And so, yeah, I was like that in the beginning too. And then I just kind of broke it down into the 3, I think categories of what are the things that I think will help fight the cancer? What are the things that I think will help reduce inflammation? And what are the things that will help my immune system? And so I just kind of said, I'm just going to do things in these 3 categories, and I don't have to do 5 things in each one. Let's, if there's redundancy, I don't need to do them all. So that's kind of how I crafted the plan, as I went along, just so it was a lot more manageable, because at some point I'm having a daily calendar of when to take what. And I was like, it's too much, Yeah.
I love it. That makes a lot of sense. And that's really good advice for people, because there is a point where your effort, your effort to get healthy can actually become too stressful, And so
exactly.
You have to find this balance of, which is what I had to do as well. Just like you, it's like I had to figure out, okay, how can I dramatically shift my daily routine, overdose on nutrition in a way that's sustainable, right?
Right.
I can just do it every day. It's simple. It's massive action, but it's a simple, just daily routine, right? I'm juicing. Mine was a little different. I'd make all my juice in the morning, right? Giant salads for lunch and dinner, just all the cruciferous vegetables.
Yeah.
Snacking on fresh fruit or almonds, walnuts, that kind of stuff. And juicing throughout the day, and then supplements as I was finding them and taking them and things. So, but I was working. So, I was like, I've got to be able to work. I got to be able to do this and work. And so in the beginning, it was kind of crazy, probably like you. And then I was able to simplify and get organized, and then just repeat. I can do this every day. no problem.
Right.
And that reduced the stress. And so, yeah, everybody kind of has to find their own sweet spot.
Yeah, you got to find your rhythm. Yeah, what you can manage and what doesn't stress you out, because stress isn't helpful. It actually will make you sicker. So, yeah, that was a big, thing, was managing the stress. And if you have faith, rely on the faith. If you're doing things that make sense, use the faith that you proclaim to have, and let you, this is when to rely on that, and, let it work for you.
And so that's a big part of my journey for sure. And I was trusting God every day to lead me, and giving him my fear and worry, and something to creep in. I would just say, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. Just show me what I need to do. Show me what I need to change. And it's amazing how, like, during the process, you get these, the analogy I like to use is, if you've ever gone on a hike in a place you've never been before, there's always a moment when you're hiking where you're like, am I lost?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Been there.
Yeah. And then, but you continue on, and eventually you see like a little marker, right? A little signpost or something on the trail, and you're like, oh, okay, good. I know this is the right way. I'll keep going. And so, the cancer journey was a lot like that for me. And I imagine it was for you, where, from day to day, you don't have a whole lot of assurances, right?
Right.
But then these things come into your life that remind you, right? They're so evident, right? There's these markers, trail markers, or signposts on the journey that remind you you're going the right way. Keep going.
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly how it was. It's like, you're not sure, but let's just trust the process at this point. Let's just trust it, and not. What you don't do usually when you're hiking is stop and turn around and go back when you're not sure. You usually keep going, right? And that's that until you find something that helps you figure it out. And so, yeah, that's definitely how it was. And for me, definitely trusted in God. And then also the meditation that I started doing helped, because it just helped me feel more centered and empowered, and just visualizing my success and planning for a wellness party. It's like, because you just plan for what you want. When you have that fear, basically fear is negative visualization, so you're actually just thinking about the worst. And so I was like, are you going to have fear, or are you going to have faith? Right. So let's pick one, because they don't go together, and then just start planning for the best outcome. So I was letting a couple of friends know I'm going to have this wellness party. When this is over, I'm planning for it. And as soon as I got the news, I was like, party's on. We're having a party, which I did that weekend. I was like, and I invited all my friends, had all healthy plant-based foods, and just celebrated, this power of God, power of the body to heal, and just learning a new way, because we get so trapped into society, and what's mainstream is thinking somehow that the mainstream is the right stream, when it's really a commercialized, manufactured stream to extract money. And so it's not the right stream. So it's like, if you could step out of the matrix and realize there's another way. And that's really what I'm celebrating the alternate way, the better way to live and heal. And so it was a really great time. I am
in love with Plan Your Wellness Party. That's like the best thing ever. And I've never heard anyone say that before. And something I say all the time is like, see yourself well, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine yourself well. See yourself well in the future. Imagine it, picture it, visualize it. But planning your wellness party. And I also love to tell people, in fact, it's in one of my books, to make plans for the future.
Yes.
So it says all the time, make plans for the future. Like, plan to get well, and plan to, start thinking about what you want to do with your life once you're well.
Absolutely.
But planning a wellness party is like the best thing ever. I love it. I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah. And it was great. It was really great. So it helped me. The only way to get rid of fear is to not say, I'm not going to be fearful, is to think about something else. So let's think about the opposite of that. Or let's just think about flowers. Let's think about going swimming. Let's think about anything else that feels good other than fear. You can't not think about something. You just have to think about something else. And so that's what really helped me get through the fear part of it and just be like, I'm trusting this. I'm doing the right things. There's a plan for my life. This was meant, things happen for a reason, and I'm just going to roll with it and see what the outcome is.
Yeah, the lesson here too is about focus, right? That you have the power to focus your attention and energy on anything you want. And if you're focused on the frightening, anxiety, worry-producing scenario, right, then that is just going to perpetuate your anxiety, worry, and fear. But you can choose in that moment to focus on something else, to shift your attention towards hope and a joyful, victorious outcome, right? And toward things that can bring you joy in the moment.
Reading the success stories, reading anecdotal stories about people healing, that really helped a lot when you're feeling kind of, scared about this. And so that's what I focused on. I didn't read any stories of failures and this, that, and the other, and botch this, that, and that's not, because that's not the plan for me. The plan is over here. And I've worked with people too. And I had a client who was like reading about, she had a condition and she was reading about all how bad it got and the painful. I was like, why are you reading that? Stop. It's not even that bad. Let's focus on something else, because you're just going to manifest that for you, if that's where your energy goes. It's just like when you're skiing and they're saying your feet follow your eyes, right? So it's like, so if you're looking down, you're probably going to fall. If you're trying to avoid a tree, you don't look at the tree, you look at the open space. It's the same thing. Look to what you want, and that's what's going to happen for you.
Yeah, focus your attention on where you want to go. I had the same advice when I was taking surf lessons.
Yeah.
Same exact advice. Look at where you want to go. Don't look at your feet. Don't look behind you. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And obviously, I'm interviewing you because I love sharing these success stories. And they're so encouraging. And yours has been amazing. And we have a few more minutes, and I want to ask you what you're doing now. But before I do, I wanted to touch on something else that you just said, which was, so we're talking about sharing success stories and focus and attention. I feel like I'm just like losing my train of thought here.
That's okay.
Oh, I don't know. I forgot it. So it'll probably jump back in a minute. But
sure.
So let me just ask you, what are you working on now?
A lot of things. So, as you know, I'm a holistic nutritionist now, a health coach. So I help people, deal with various things from diabetes to cancer to whatever, using a nutritional approach or supporting whatever it is they're doing. So basically, it's kind of giving them the roadmap so they're not having to start from square one, and giving that support. But my newest venture is Ruby Red's vegan meal delivery service, because I had so many clients who asked me if I could, instead of giving them recipes, could make the food for them, that I finally am. Right. Right. And so I launched that in the middle of COVID, because it was a good time to do that. And, finally built a system that we can deliver food. Right now, it's locally in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Hopefully, we'll be able to expand that. But healthy plant-based food that follows the type of guidelines that will help you heal. And I've seen people healing from diabetes just eating the food that I'm serving them on a weekly basis and getting better. So I was like, any food that I'm going to serve is going to follow the recommendations that I give of low oil, low salt, healthy, whole food, organic, plant-based food. And so that's my current venture that I'm really working to grow and getting great feedback. People love the food. It's my recipes. And so every week we're adding to that, and I eat my own food. So it's a good thing. So that's been my latest thing that I'm super excited about.
So the documentary, They're Trying to Kill Us, what's that about?
Yes. So that is also made by one of the producers of What the Health, and John Lewis, or Badass Vegan. And it really is talking about the systemic poisoning in urban communities through food and what's behind that. So with the same kind of take of kind of peeling back the veil of why there's so much food insecurity and junk food in African Americans and poor communities, that's what this movie is focusing on and what we can do about that. So it's an incredible film. It's got a lot of really well-known people that I think people will resonate with, but the information is A1, which, you know, we would expect from those producers.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like it's right up my alley.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, where can people find you?
The best place to find me is through my website, which is my name, rubylathon.com. And I'm on all social media. Just look me up there too. Always, you know, putting out good, helpful, hopeful information for folks. So there's always stuff going on, from demos to conferences that I'm hosting and all those kind of things. So just stay connected and folks can find out what I'm doing.
Dr. Ruby Lathon, this was so fun. The hour flew by really fast. And
it did.
I appreciate you so much. Your story's amazing. You've got so much just wonderful and practical wisdom to share. And I hope you'll watch this again, because there were so many really, really powerful nuggets in here that, you know, we could talk for hours and hours and really flesh them all out. But this was so good. Thank you again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate your platform, because I know it helps so many people, because people have mentioned you to me when they're going through their health journeys too. And so they're always looking for people they can resonate with who have done this and are here to support. So I'm just happy to be a part of that community and to be chatting with you and helping people heal and stay well.
Well, you're awesome. Great to be on the same team. And I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
All right.
And if you like this video, share it, subscribe, and please send it to people that you care about. There are people in your life who need to know that they can change their life, that they can heal, that nutrition can make all the difference between health and disease, and that it's not that hard to change. And so there are people like Dr. Ruby and myself and so many others that are here to help you. So thanks for watching. See you on the next one.